So I titled today, The BRRRR is Back. Does anyone know why I say the BRRRR is back? Rates. What does that mean? What does that mean when we say rates? Coming down, like an anchor on a ship. They're coming down. And I'll show you how fast in a minute. I'll show you my email, like the email box that's getting flooded with these rates keep coming down. So we actually, time, I have no idea. Time just flies. I don't know where we are. When did rates start going up? Was it last year or the year before? Was it somewhere last year? Or was it the year before? I can't even remember. But 22. Okay. That's when it was 20. It's 2 years ago. So when it started happening, the rates started creeping up, and we're looking at 7, 8, 9%, 10% for investor deals, investor loans. Everyone, I say everyone, the people in our space were saying the BRRRR is dead. The BRRRR is dead because the rates were too high to cash flow. And it became more difficult. It did. The BRRRR has never been dead. It just meant you had to get a deeper discount to make the BRRRR work. So now I'm saying the BRRRR is back because it's easier to do. It's easier to cash flow. We were getting 6.5%, 7% interest on an investor deal, investor loan. Their BRRRR numbers are easier to make work. Okay, so that's why the BRRRR is back, and I think it's going to be here for a while. There's a lot going on. We're not getting into that today. If y'all want to talk market stuff, macroeconomics, that's for tomorrow morning. We kind of geek out sometimes on that at Coffee Cash Flow. But who in here's heard this before? Don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Have y'all heard that? Yeah. So it's a very famous saying. Basically, it says, hey, get the real estate now and wait for it to go up. Warren Buffett has famously said that the 30-year mortgage is the number one finance tool ever invented. And you're like, well, how is that possible? Everybody has one. I have a 30-year mortgage on my house. That's not a finance genius move. Well, it kind of is, because when you get a 30-year mortgage, you're actually, it gives you the opportunity to short the dollar. It gives you the opportunity to lock in a rate where at today's dollar, that if the rates go higher in the future, you're stuck paying that low rate. You're stuck paying now it's 5 and 6. Those people that got it 2, 3, 4 years ago, they're still paying that 2.5%, 3%. And that lender is stuck with that investment. If you get a 30-year mortgage and the rate goes down, well, you can refinance and get a better rate. So you, as a borrower on a 30-year mortgage, you're in the driver's seat. As long as you're paying attention and you're treating it like a business, like Warren Buffett was talking about, it's the best deal in town. So that's where the BRRRR comes from. And so if you haven't heard the BRRRR, I'm going to dive into what the term means. How do you get into it? How do you get out of it? And how do you rinse and repeat? But first, just kind of starting with, who is the BRRRR for? And the BRRRR, let me just say it now, it's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat, recycle, reuse, whatever you want to do at the end. Just, you can BRRRR on forever. But basically, it's the function of buying a deal, getting it renovated so you're adding value, renting it out so that the lender sees it as a viable investment, and then you're borrowing money from a long-term lender for long-term. Okay? So who's that for? That's for just about anybody if that's part of your goal. If wealth building is part of your goal, if monthly cash flow is part of your goal, then the BRRRR is for you. If you look at holding rentals and dealing with tenants and termites and taxes, like Emery famously says in our commercial, if those things make you squeamy and you don't like it and you're like, I don't want to touch anything that has to do with that, then you probably shouldn't BRRRR. You should look at another avenue in real estate investing. Does that make sense? Most of the people in here probably are on the BRRRR page, right? So that's why you're here. So I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to talk about the people that are scared of termites and taxes, okay? The bottom line is doing a BRRRR, you have to have some resources. You have to know what you're doing. You have to begin with the end in mind to make it successful. So don't just go out and say, well, this is easy. Everybody does it. I can buy anything and get my money back. That's not true. Okay. So here it is. Here's a pretty graphic. I was going to say I tried to do that with AI and it was awful. So I just did it on PowerPoint. So the first thing, the number one thing about finding and doing the BRRRR is what? It's up there. Finding the deals. You got to find a good deal. You guys go and get the discount. Just because a seller says, yeah, I'll sell you a house, doesn't mean it's a deal. I don't know how many wholesalers have flooded my inbox with things that they say are deals just because the seller was like, yeah, I'll sell. That doesn't make it a deal. Okay? It's got to be a discount. There has to be equity built in or an opportunity for you to build equity in. All right? So, top 10 places, and I'm not going to sit on this for a long time. I think I did a whole class on this earlier this year, actually. To find a deal today, don't call wholesalers, call deal finders. But any of the wholesalers in the room, in our market space, online, the signs on the side of the road, call them, tell them you're looking for one. Real estate agents, there's a lot of agents in here that come across discount deals, okay? Other vendors, lenders as well. Driving for dollars, checking out your neighborhood, seeing what's out there, what needs help, what needs love. One of my favorite things to do would be the for sale by owners. Whenever someone's stuck, you're like, man, I haven't got a deal, man. Nobody's returning my calls. My marketing is not hitting on anything. Go to the for sale by owner on Craigslist and Zillow or even FSBO.com. Just call them all because the for sale by owners are people that have said, yes, I want to sell. No, I don't want to go the traditional route. And here's my phone number. Does that sound like possibly a deal in that pile? Yeah. And there's probably 250 of them right now that if you're feeling stuck or you're just getting started and you're afraid of what people are going to say when you talk to them on the phone, call the for sale by owners. All right. So buying, there you go, Sean. I think that's you. You can't really see it. That's you. You're wearing the same shirt. All right. So that's all right. That's the only one you got. So when you buy the deal, you have, this is where a lot of investors get in trouble. We talked about this at one of our coffee cash flow, is we see them online for sale on the MLS all the time where an investor or someone that wanted to be an investor bought a deal, but they didn't underwrite it correctly and they don't have the money to either finish it or they are so in over their head that they can't sell it because the price they have to sell for is way over the market. And those are people that did not underwrite the deal. And when we say underwrite the deal, that basically means run the numbers. See if it's a viable deal. And I'll show you kind of how to run the numbers here in a second. But who do you want on your team when you're doing that? You want to have a contractor. You want to have an inspector. If you don't have a good inspector, there's a couple of them that are used within our community. Blake can get you in contact with one, but Pinpoint we use all the time. You definitely want to have an agent, someone that you can call to give you an idea of what is this property worth when I'm done with it? What do you think it could rent out for? So a property manager, all of these people should be there where you can reach out and ask these questions. That's part of underwriting. Now, if you're an experienced investor or you have a partner to talk to with this, you don't need to have all these people in your Rolodex and you don't have to call these people before you do a deal, but you need to have the information. Does that make sense? If you're good at comping, you probably don't need an agent. If you are a property manager, you don't need to find another one, okay? Insurance, taxes, those are things that you have to build in to your deal before you buy it because unfortunately, you're going to have to pay for those things. And if you don't build them in, you won't have your insurance to cover up when you burn the house down, right? So you have to build in. You have to find out what the insurance is going to cost, what the new tax rate will be when you buy it. And this, if you guys are new, if you haven't done this, write this down. When you buy a house, the assessor is going to change the value of the house based on your purchase price if it went up. If it didn't go up, they're not bringing it down. And then if it was a owner occupied home, it was at 4%. When you get it, it's going to 6%. It doesn't seem like much, but if you come to our beginner boot camp and we'll kind of talk through that, we'll actually run those numbers. It ends up being about 3 times. So 3 times the taxes, okay? It can kill all of your cash flow if you don't do that. So you have to be able to underwrite these deals effectively and correctly. All right, so I mentioned this earlier, begin with the end in mind. I put this up here because Bishop and I have an ongoing chess match at the office, and it's probably my move, but I feel like I'm going to lose this game. Bishop's I think he's got me on this one. But in chess, you have to think a couple moves ahead, right? You can't just move one piece and then wait and see what happens. You got to think a few moves ahead. Same thing with being in real estate and doing the BRRRR process. So what are those moves? Let's talk about this. 1% to 2% rule. Who knows what that means? You can shout it out. Ted, what's it mean? I saw your hand.
1% risk-weighted purchase price by 100,000.
Rent. Yep. So it's a rule of thumb. It doesn't replace your underwriting. It doesn't replace your calculator where you actually go through and calculate your costs, but it's a good rule of thumb to get you started on the deal. Whereas we say the 1% to 2% rule, unfortunately, our market is so hot. There's been a lot of investors come here from across the country. Columbia gets named top city to move to all the time. We used to be able to buy a 2% rule pretty regularly. That is kind of a diamond in the rough now. But essentially, if you pay $100,000 all in, so you've already done your rehab, that's your money invested, and you can rent it for $1,000, that is 1%. That is a good spot to be in, okay? When you run the numbers and do all your insurance, your rehab and all that stuff, you'll find out whether it's right for that particular deal, but it's a good spot to be in. So we look at deals in that 1% to 2% range. So 2% means $100,000 is what I bought it for, and it should rent out for about $2,000. Okay, so that's 2% of what I paid for it. 70% to 80% ARV. What does that mean? For all the new people, what does that mean? Who's got it? Nobody? Y'all know it. Y'all afraid to say it. Stan, what's it mean? After repair value. There you go. So after repair value is essentially what the retail value of the property is when you're done with your rehab. All right. And so that is what our appraisal will be when we go to our lender. This is where your agent comes in handy. This is where your ability to comp deals, to look at the market space and see what is this property going to be worth when I'm done with it. Okay. And so why do I say 70 to 80%? Well, if we begin with the end in mind, our lenders today, the quotes we're getting, they're giving us 70 to 80% of our money back. Okay? So when we do the appraisal, they're giving us quotes of 70, 75, or 80% loan to value. So we like to try to say, and what does this look like practically? If we think the house is going to be worth $100,000, 70% of that would be $70,000. So we want to try to purchase the house, renovate the house, and be all in at 70. Does that make sense? How does that benefit us? Well, if we're all in at 70 and we go to a long-term lender and get a DSCR loan, which I'll tell you what that is in a minute, and they say, I'll give you $70,000 because I'll give you 70%, then we get all of our money back, and then we recycle it into the next deal. Y'all follow me? That is the beauty of the BRRRR in a nutshell. The cool part of that is if we were able to buy and renovate for $60,000 and that lender says, we'll still give you 70%, what do we call that? For my experienced people, somebody shout it out. Cash out. That is called a cash out refi, and that is just this is a beautiful sound when you say it. It just kind of rings. Cash out refi. Yes, I'll take it. That is recycling your money and actually getting a little bit more. Now, it's leverage. Yeah, you got to pay it back, but it puts money back in the forefront, puts money back in your pocket today to do your business, to pay for marketing, to pay for reno, to buy cool shirts, whatever it is, you know. So beginning with the end in mind, your rehab funds, where are you going to get them? We have great lenders back there that will actually lend you the purchase price and rehab funds, right? You got to put some sort of down payment, you got to pay fees and interest, whatever that is, but they will actually help you with the rehab, okay? Your lease rates, you have to know what the lease rate will be when you're done. And guys, you cannot have pie in the sky dreams of like, well, this house I needed to rent for $2,000, so that's what it's going to rent for. That doesn't work. These lenders are going to go and they're going to get an appraisal and they're going to look at the fair market rent. And that's what they're going to use. We were just talking about that we're doing a refi right now where we have a really high lease rate. And I sent them the lease. I'm like, yeah, check out this sweet lease we got. It's really good. It's great. You know, we'll talk about DSCR ratio, the ratio of the loan of the lease. I was like, look, man, we got plenty. This is great. He's like, yeah, well, the appraiser has to verify that. I was like, oh, come on. You can't just go with the lease. Like, no, we got to get the appraiser to back it up. So you can't fudge it. You can't just say, I got a really good tenant. I know I could charge them more. You've got to know what's going on in that area, that market. That's where a property manager comes into play. Okay. Don't try to fake it. Just go with the numbers that are there. Okay. And the deal works, do it. Seasoning period. A few years ago when the rates were going up, the seasoning period went up. They wanted you to hold it for over a year. Now that's come back down, and you could typically do it if you've held it for about 6 months. I've heard some even going back down to the 4 months. So if you've held it, you've renovated it, and got it leased out in 4 months, you can get the refi. Okay? So those are things you need to think about and know, because you're going to have to pay for your short-term lending during that seasoning period, and that's a little bit more expensive. Okay? All right, so these are the different types of funding. We do have Rehab Wallet is one of your private money lenders. They are asset based, which means that they would look at the asset, not necessarily pulling your credit. You could do that. There's also credit based lenders. There's also, you can go to your local bank. You could do owner financing. Transactional lenders usually want their money back quick, so 2 or 3 days. So you can't really do a whole lot with that, but they're there for gaps. Let's see, lines of credit, partnerships. If you don't have the funding, you don't have your lines of credit, you've got terrible credit or no credit, partnering with somebody to help you get those deals done. Okay, we have our website that has a couple links on it. This is when you're doing the BRRRR, understanding the cost of financing is so important, and it gets overlooked all the time, y'all. And maybe I'll stop here and just give this caveat: I'm not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I'm not going to give you legal or tax advice or any of that stuff. I will say that people online, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, the videos that I see, they make this business look so easy and so glamorous. And they usually have a Lamborghini or some ugly green car, right? And it attracts people and makes people think that this is my easy, quick way out. Y'all, it is not. When you're talking about these types of money transactions, we're talking hundreds and $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 transactions back and forth, with multiple lenders and the fees that cost, and your sellers, your attorneys. Y'all, it's difficult, and you need to be paying attention to this, or you're going to end up with nothing. They're going to take it all. You're going to mess up, and the lenders will take the house, and you won't have any money left. Okay, so understanding this before you buy will keep you out of trouble. Okay, so this is my safety speech. Y'all cool with that? Everybody good? You still in? Does anybody want to leave now? You just forget it, I'm done? All right, you're all still here. Well, I'll keep going. All right, so just to give you a real life example, this is a quad BRRRR. Some of y'all have been to this quad before. These, I think, might be your floors in there. Jonathan. If that's not your floor, the next picture is. So this purchase price was $100,000. It was an owner finance deal, zero money down because the deal had a lot of heavy deferred maintenance and bad tenants. This seller actually finally called us and said, "I'm ready to sell," because his wife made him, because the tenant threatened to shoot him and had a gun, and his wife was like, I don't want to go back. I don't want you to go back. We didn't know that until after we owned it. And we were like, "Hey, what's the deal with this tenant?" He's like, "Oh, that's the one that threatened to kill me." What? So, but hey, crazy stuff gets you good deals. So we're cool with it. Let's talk about the numbers for this deal and other deals like this. Okay. And if you can't read this, I can send this piece out to you, but we talk about it tomorrow morning or at the beginner boot camp. I think it's in there. But anyway, after repair value, we talked about that. So we're going to start with 100,000. Okay. And if y'all want to write it down and follow the math, it's great. After repair value is 100,000. And that's not this, but let's use the quad. Since that's our real life example, let's use the quad. After repair value is 450,000. Okay. Purchase cost was 100,000. The points and the fees to do the closing, remember that was the owner finance, there wasn't a whole lot of fees, so it was about $1,500. So you can start adding these things up. Carrying costs, we did have to make payments while we held it. Cool thing is it was already rented out. We're not going to talk about that right now. Let's just make it easy. Carrying costs, making our payments is about $600 a month. Rehab cost, 150,000. Inspection and appraisal fees, we didn't do any of that on the front end. We had to do that on the back end when we refied. So $800 for that. $800 is the appraisal fee. Cash out. So this is where you write down how much cash you want out of the deal. If you're underwriting this deal using these numbers, you can build in how much cash you want. Because as Patrick and I were talking about, flipping houses is really cool. It's really fun. You get cash at the beginning, or when you close a deal, you get cash in your pocket. But you're not building wealth. You're not keeping that tenant. You're not keeping that property to let it appreciate. If you can build a system where you are renovating the house and instead of selling it, you're actually cash out refining, then you have that business that'll keep you going. So you can actually get cash in the beginning. So you can build that into your underwriting, right? We didn't really have a number for the quad, how much we wanted out. We really weren't really looking for that. So there's no money there. We didn't put it in there. Refi cost, lender fees, it's going to be about 2% of that. So 2% of the loan value, which, is it in here? LTV is the top. We actually went with 70% LTV on that one. So we got a 70% loan of 450, which is 317, if my math is right. So the lender fees would be 2% of 317, which is 7,000. All right. So if you take all that in, you would come out to the number that you would want to pay for this deal. Okay. You can do that math that way. All right, and we'll finish that math here in a minute to show you what we actually cashed out. All right, moving through. So to do the rehab, you see Michelle up there? Did y'all know that Michelle and we renovated houses and actually swing hammers back in the day? And sometimes we still go in when it's like last minute or contractor didn't do something. I always carry a bag. She carries a tool bag. This is Michelle hanging something. I don't know. She's hanging a cabinet or a shelf. But we are not the contractor. You should not be your contractor unless you are a contractor, right? That's not how you're going to build your business, by hanging cabinets. Okay? If you can't pay for contractors when you run your numbers, then you're running your numbers way too tight. Okay? You got to be able to pay for people to do the business, to do the deal. Using a general contractor is going to cost you more, less hands-on. You won't need to be there all the time. You're just going to write checks. If you have a full-time job that doesn't allow you to be there, then GC is the way to go. Project manager is someone that you will be kind of the GC. Project manager means you're going to be hiring subcontractors. You're going to be overseeing them. You're going to be the one, telling them to call you when they're at Lowe's to pay for material, whatever that looks like. Okay. So there's daily management of subs when you do it that way. Depends on where you're at. Depends on what you can do. All right. But use a professional to get it done. Common things to look for. These are things that you have to see in the beginning. Roof, HVAC, the electrical outlets. You want to make sure that it's safe. When you're doing a renovation that you're going to rent it out, you want to be able to say, we were just talking about Section 8 housing, the laws that Section 8 goes by, Columbia Housing Authority, all those things, they use the HUD guidelines. So you want to know that they want you to have a fire extinguisher in the house. You want to know that they need you to have smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, and all the windows have to open. All right, these are things to look for so that when you do your rehab, you get it done right. So when you go to rent it out, you don't have issues. Make sense? Some of the cool things with doing rental rehab is it's not as expensive as a flip. Why? Finishes. You don't have to do top of the line. It doesn't have to be, the most pretty HGTV renovation, because it's going to go to a tenant who has expectation of using the property. They don't have an expectation of living and loving and being there for their whole life and raising their kids. It's a different expectation for tenants. Now, some of them do expect to live there for their whole life, but they're more lenient on the finishes. Okay. So landscaping, for one thing. Typically in our rentals, if there's bushes and flowers there, like, we're not going to mow them down, but we surely aren't planting any more of them. And if they die, they die. Okay. So pine straw is the way to go. Lighting packages, plumbing fixtures, all that. HVAC. When you do a flip and that HVAC is 15 years old, it might run like a champ. But when you go to get that inspection done, that homeowner is most likely going to say what? Replace it. It's too old, even though it runs like a champ. In a rental house, the tenant's not going to go inspect the AC. If it works, it works. So that's $5,000 you get to save right there in your renovation budget. Okay? All right, so those are things to look at when you're going into your deal. One of the biggest issues we run into, and many of you will run into, is time. Time it just gobbles up profit like nothing else. It's like Pac-Man on time, right? It's just money. It's just eating it. So how do we prevent that? How do we go in and make sure that we're going to get things done on time? Knowing what we just talked about, the steps ahead, knowing where you're going to be in the future. Looking at a detailed scope of work and not starting until you have that detailed scope of work and you have the contractors lined up and you know where you're going. We see in some of the partners we work with and some of the people we've helped mentor, and us even sometimes, we get into a deal and we're like, we got to start to work. We own it. We got to go. And if you do that, you run the risk of getting started, going down the path, and then having to stop, correct, or overspending and doing things you didn't need to do. And that just adds time, and time adds money. Some things you can't account for are the interest rates a few years ago. When they skyrocketed, if you were trying to exit and do a refi, and nobody knew that was happening. There was no warning. There was no like, hey guys, we're going to raise the rates in 6 months. It was like, rates are going up. And lenders were trying to stay ahead of the rates, which made doing our DSCR loans more difficult, which made it add time or add money. Okay. So some things you can't foresee. So all the things you can do them up front so that you can be protected in that. All right. Talk about the quad BRRRR. It was obviously 4 units. We had 3 bad tenants. We had to get out of there. Extensive renovation, which took about 6 months. It was all everything. Everything was renovated. Windows, walls, doors, HVACs, plumbing and electrical were actually fine. We just had to fix, things that were loose and leaking. We did get a $150,000 rehab loan from a private lender, and we went in, spent our 6 months, and then got it leased out. We were actually able to get it leased right away to a company, and we were looking for $1,200 per unit. We got $4,000 total. So instead of $4,800, we got $4,000. But we got it day one, and it was a good deal. And we didn't have to have a property manager because it was just one corporate client, and that saved us on that. All right. So that was the buy and the rehab. Does anybody have any questions on those two? I know I'm talking a lot, so I want to give you a chance. All right. So we're going to get into the rates here in a second when we get to the refi, which is all of this kind of leads up to, can we make it cash flow at the end of the day? So when you're going to do the rent, did David make it? David did not make it. So when you're renting your property, you've got to know what is the best use for my property. Why? Because rents might be different. What do y'all think rents higher rate? Student rental or long-term market rate? Students. How about short-term rental, Airbnb versus your weekly rental, non-Airbnb transient renter? I don't know. Weekly, if it's in the right location, because here's the deal. Your weekly renters are living or staying in a different place than your Airbnb guests. So they're probably the same amount of rent, same amount of management. You're still having to turn over, you're still dealing with sheets, you're still dealing with weekly or in and out, check in, check out, but you're in totally different locations. You think you need to know about that before you buy your rental? Yeah. Okay. It's going to be really hard to do down here on North Millwood, right next to Salvation Army. It's really hard to do a Airbnb right there because there's nothing around it. No, there's nothing for them to do. But a weekly rental is great because the bus stop is there. There's a lot of jobs around there. The college is there. So understanding where the rental is going to make a big difference. Okay. The student rentals, of course, downtown, anywhere near the college. Self versus property manager. Now, I used to manage our properties. I used to manage hotels. When we went to 4 to 5 units, and I said no more. I couldn't stand it. I did not like dealing with the tenants. I didn't like, because I was the one fixing the toilets. I was the one, Michelle and I, we were painting the houses. That was not for me. Really, I think Michelle was the one that finally said no more, because she's like, I don't want you to have to answer those phone calls. I don't want you to have to go do this stuff, right? So figuring out if you're going to manage it or a property manager is going to take over is huge. Why? It's an expense. It's 10% usually, at least. However, you probably, even if you're going to self-manage, you want to run your numbers that you're going to pay somebody else to do it, okay? You want to do that just in case you can't, right? You break a leg, you can't do it. You move out of town, you can't do it. You just decide you hate it, you can't do it. So you give it to someone else, all right? Use a proper lease. If you don't use a property manager, get a lease that protects you. Beware of the debt-to-income ratio and the debt coverage. So this is where we're talking about the refinance. The DSCR, debt service coverage ratio loan. All right, if you don't know what that means, that's what it means. I think I said all the words right. But essentially it means the lenders are going to lend you the money to refinance your house, your deal, based on the fact that you can cover the debt by the income of the property. What the lenders are looking at is basically, if you quit paying me and I have to kick you out, kick you to the curb, and we have to take over this house, can we lease it out to cover our payments? So that's what the lenders ultimately wants to make sure of. Because those lenders aren't really they look at you, they look at your credit, they look at your business, they want to make sure you're not crazy, but they're really looking at the deal, looking at the asset. And so they want to make sure it's at least 1.2. And next question is, what does that mean? What is 1.2? 1.2. That means if your debt service, so your monthly mortgage, your monthly insurance, your monthly taxes, if it equals, just say, $1,000 even, they want to make sure that your rent is at least $1,200. Does that make sense? 1,200 is 1.2 times, 1,000 is 1.2. 1,000 times 1.2 equals 1,200. Man, math got messed up in my head. So they want to make sure that if you're out of the picture, you don't pay them, something happens, this tenant will cover the payments. Okay? So you have to have that. We like to make sure, we like to go over, right? If it's a 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, all the better, right? But when you go into your lender, 1.2, if you make that your minimum, you're going to be better off. Okay? So the rents for that quad was $400 a unit. I know. I don't understand, but that's what they were. We got them up after renovation, the $1,200. Like I said, we started at the $1,000 per unit. Now we're going up to $1,200. We got the higher quality tenants because we did a full renovation. Right? When you go in, you do a good renovation, you can demand a higher quality tenant. Doesn't mean your lender's going to say, "Oh, well, you're getting better rent. We'll count that." No, they're still going to do, like I said, they're going to count the appraisal. But higher quality tenants means easier management, less downtime, less maintenance costs and stuff like that. Okay, we were able to get it up to market value rents, and then when you have a higher quality tenant, you have an opportunity to have higher quality management. People that will take care of your stuff. If you have a bad property, I don't want to call it a slum property or whatever, if you have a property that's deferred maintenance, well, the management company is going to see that and they're going to treat it as such, which means your tenants will treat it as such. Okay. So when you do a good deal, you do a good renovation, you come in with a fully renovated property, you're looking at savings and less stress for me is the biggest thing. And I don't have to worry about the fact that maybe a hot water heater is going to break because we already replaced it. Okay. All right. Here's what I was talking about earlier. I kept going through this, and I don't know if you can read this, but these are literally email subject lines from just the last 10 days in my inbox from different lenders that say DSCR rates have dropped, lowest portfolio rates in the market, in the sixes, DSCR 6.7, DSCR 6.25 without paying it down. Hot, DSCR loans are hot. What else they say? 6.5, now as low as 6. That was the one I just got before I did this. This is what made me want to do this on the slide because it's happened today. As low as 6. So do you think the banks are ready? You think they want you to do this? Do you think doing a business that other people want you to do is easier than trying to swim upstream? Right? We just heard Rehab Wallet said, "Hey, do a deal. We want to lend you the money." They want to lend you the money to do your renovations, to get started. All of these guys want to lend you their money so that you can hold it for long term. Y'all, the system is set up, our governance, like you get tax credits for doing these deals. You get depreciation. It is all set up to help you build wealth. When you just go with what's happening, you are better off. Okay. So right now these lenders are dying to lend this money out, and at 6%, 6.25%, you are looking at really. It makes doing that math earlier way easier. It's much easier to get your cash flow numbers that you need. All right. So how do you do that? How do you get these emails? How does your email flood like this? Well, being bankable is huge. Take care of your credit. Now, a lot of these lenders aren't going to really worry about it. They'll actually lend at like 680. Some will go down to like 660 credit. but you won't get 6%, right? You're going to have to pay more. So be bankable. Start paying attention to that. Fix your credit. If you have bad credit, work on it. Get a partner that might be able to work with you through this. Cash flow versus cash out. We talked about how beautiful it is to get cash out. I love the sound of it. Well, sometimes you want better cash flow. So a lower mortgage is going to help you monthly, right? If you don't need the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 cash out today, well, don't get it, because that's a debt. Like, you have to pay it back. So if you don't need that, your business doesn't need that for marketing or whatever, or t-shirts, right? Just leave it and leave the equity in the deal and have a lower payment, which means higher cash flow. Do you guys follow me on this? I know it's a lot of numbers throwing around. Having the long-term outlook for this, for your portfolio, is going to be huge, okay? Thinking long-term. When Michelle and I first got started, our whole thing, everything was, how do we recycle the money we started with, and how do we get our $200 per unit cash flow? That was us 2015, 16, 17, okay? And when we got to our 35 units, we hit that. Then we could change. And then we said, hey, we actually both went full-time. So when we're both full-time, we're getting paid from the business. You think cash out was important? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We wanted to have something in the bank, right? You want to be able to eat. So having some cash out each time helped the marketing, because we were heavy marketing, helped us make sure our business was still going, even when, you guys know, real estate goes like this. In December and January, it's tough, right? So that was important at that time. So have your long-term outlook, know where you're going. Seasoning period, again, I think that's gone down. The DSCR loans have become much easier to qualify for. We could connect you. It's right there on the website down there at the bottom. We have a couple of the links there. I don't want to make it sound like these are the only people you can use. There's a lot of lenders, but in the same vein, do not just use a lender because they reached out to you on Facebook. As a matter of fact, if they reach out to you on Facebook, you should probably not use them. Okay? And Rehab Wallet can probably attest to this, and some people in here may have lost money doing this. If you don't have a personal referral, someone that's actually closed a loan with them, I would shy away. Okay? And here's the reason: because there are scams and spams out there. It may not seem like a lot. It may seem like a whole lot of work just to get a couple $100, but there's people that will say, yeah, I'll do this deal for you, and just send me $200 to get it started. And then they disappear. And you thought you had a loan going and nothing happened. Or worse yet, they say $200 now. Oh, the appraisal's $800. Oh, now we got to get this. And they'll just milk you, and they'll never close your deal. Okay? So there's lots of lenders, but don't just pick anybody offline. Okay? Does that make sense? I'm just trying to keep everybody safe because it's easy to get suckered into that. Especially when they're like, oh, I'll give you money. Yeah, slow down. All right, so here's the actual term sheet for the 30-year fixed on this deal, the quad. And I know you probably can't see that. If y'all want to see it later, I can open it up for you. But we got 315 cash out, not 17, sorry, or total out. We were in 100 to buy it. 150 was the rehab budget from the lender. So we paid them back, paid off the purchase price, and so we ended up with cash out about $65,000. Now, I just told you we weren't really doing a lot of cash out. We weren't looking for cash out at this point. Why did we get cash out now? Well, because market's changing. We don't know what's coming up next. We got a couple more renovations to do. Bishop is now on board with our property management, and he wants us to renovate all of them. And so we're looking at, well, we can use our cash from this deal because this rate is so great that we'll move it around. We'll do renovations somewhere else. Okay. And the rate is actually 6.65. So if y'all have been in this business for a little while, what were the rates? I mean, is anyone excited about 6.65? Yeah, I'm excited about 6.65. A few years ago, pre-COVID, like 6 was pretty normal. 6.5 was pretty normal. Yes, during COVID, we got down in the 3s and 4s and 5s, but 6.5 is great. We are happy to do with that. I'm not going to get into the finance math and the metrics of what all that means for our long-term wealth building and the fact that the tenants are paying that, not me, and what that's going to compound into. But guys, 6.5 makes it so much easier to do. If I can find it on here, a monthly principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is $2,400. If you change that to like a 7.5%, 8% mortgage, that number jumps up by $600 or $800, and then it becomes a non-deal. They won't lend on it, or they'll lend on it, but not as much. Okay. So that's why I'm super excited. We plan to talk about BRRRR at this meeting anyway, but the fact that my email box is flooding with lenders that are saying 6, 6.5, 6.75, they don't even say 7s. This just points to where you guys, this community, deal finders, can get out there and start acquiring some assets, start getting some cash flow, start closing on these deals. And maybe you don't want to keep them forever, but if you keep them for just a few years, y'all, Columbia is on fire. And 2019 to now, houses prices have doubled and rents are going up. So this is just, it's so promising. It's so exciting for where we are today that I'm more excited to share. More excited because I was going to do this presentation. I wasn't going to say anything about the rates because they were so high. But here we are. All right, so the last piece of the BRRRR is to repeat it. Now, it becomes a business when you document your process, when you systematize your process, when you are able to do it over and over again. That becomes a way to go from 1 rental to 4 to 35 to whatever, okay? So recycle the same money. The only way to recycle the same money is to keep your expenses in order. Okay, keep your budget in order. Don't, just because the money comes in from a flip or from a refi, you can't go spend it on t-shirts. You got to use it. You got to spend it on your next deal. Okay, being very, very diligent in watching and using that capital for investment purposes is what's going to help you get and grow. Okay. If you're happy where you are, you don't have to do that. You can spend it when you cash out refi. You can flip and not worry about it. But if you're trying to build wealth and you're trying to get some cash flow and get some rental houses, you got to be diligent with that. All right. Somebody just texted me about the Profit First book, Profit First for Real Estate Investors. It teaches you how to do that. It's really easy. It's very fundamental, super easy read. David's a friend of ours, and he just very analytical brain, but it was able to put it in a book that I think everyone in here would benefit from. So look it up. Profit First for Real Estate Investors helps you get there. And then the infinite returns. When you're able to recycle that money every time you use it and you get your money out, that property, that rental house is generating an infinite amount of return on investment. And every investor from here to kingdom come would love infinite.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders Podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.